Welcome to Talk with Toni. My first guest is Annette Guzman, who is now our budget director in Cook County. So Annette, introduce yourself to folks.
Hello, my name is Annette Guzman. I am, as the president said, the new budget director for the county. I am a lawyer by training, practiced finance law for almost 8 years at Sidley Austin here in Chicago.
Okay, this is one of the big downtown law firms.
Yes. I'm a proud graduate of University of Chicago Law School in Hyde Park.
Oh my God. Okay, that's a tough place to get in.
Well, it brought me to Chicago because I'm originally from the South in Atlanta, Georgia,
All right.
where my parents are. And after graduating and practicing at Sidley, decided to take a change in my career and went into government, first on the city side, where I helped to create the new Civilian Office of Police Accountability as their first chief of staff. And after COPA, yes. And after that,
Just a second, let's stop there.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about COPA.
So back in 2016, after the release of the Laquan McDonald videotape, the mayor decided...
Just a second. The videotape was released only after a judge's order.
That's
correct.
correct.
It was not released by the police department or the administration. Actually, they resisted releasing it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. But the video was released eventually after a lot of protests, a lot of advocacy on the part of citizens.
And the judge's order.
And the judge's order, that's correct.
Yeah.
And so after all of that, they decided to bring in a new chief administrator of the Independent Police Review Authority, Sharon Fairley. And Sharon
IPRA.
Under IPRA, yes. And Sharon brought me on as her first chief of staff, and our job was to reform IPRA.
Independent Police Review Authority.
Yes.
These acronyms are kind of hard for people to remember. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that. Our task was to reform IPRA, but it soon became evident after the Police Accountability Task Force released their report that a new agency needed to be created. So our mandate shifted from reforming one agency to creating a new agency. And so for a short amount of time, we were operating two agencies, winding down one, creating another one. And that launched in September of 2017 and is still in existence today and is the new agency that investigates the most serious complaints alleged against the Chicago Police Department.
Okay. All right. And then from there?
From there, I took a little break. It was a very exhausting work to create that agency. And during
Burned
that...
out.
I'm sorry?
You were burned out.
I was a little bit burned out, yes. But during that time, I met the now Assessor Kagi, and over the summer helped him think through his transition into office as the new assessor-elect of Cook County, and helping him think through work structure, culture change, a lot of the things that I had done when I was working at COPA. And during that time, he said, well, why don't you just join me? And I said, okay, I will join, because it's another agency that I think the public had made a statement. We want change. And I believe in good government. I believe in, giving residents, the best that we can in our service. And so I took it on as a challenge, a new challenge, to come in, learn a completely different area that I'd never learned before, property assessments, property taxes. I'm a resident of Cook County. I own property subject to the same laws that everyone is that owns property. Had never delved into this area before. So it was fascinating, it was enlightening. And the additional challenge that I hadn't ever kind of grappled with was the fact that that office is still under monitoring by a federal monitor under the Shackman decree. So really getting up to speed on how that impacts the work of the office and, building a better office. And did that for a year. Worked really closely with the budget office during that time, with Amar and with Tanya, the former budget director. Got to know them very well. And
Amar Ritzky is our chief financial officer.
Yes, exactly.
Tanya Anthony was the budget director.
Yes. And so after working with them and Tanya announcing that she was moving into the role of the chief administrative officer under you, they both asked if I would be interested in becoming your next budget director. And I wholeheartedly and enthusiastically said yes, because it's a great opportunity to work on the issues facing Cook County, to be involved in policy discussions that your office is working on, and I just am really excited about what I can help bring to your administration.
So what's the job of the budget director?
So I think of the job of the budget director kind of in twofold. One, I think of the budget as a policy document. So it really tells us, how do we use our resources year over year to fund the priorities of the county, whether it be in criminal justice, in healthcare, public safety, whatever it is that we put as our priorities for the year. How do we allocate resources to do that? How do we raise the funds to fund those priorities? And we have to make those priority decisions amongst all of the demands, all of the things that our residents are asking of government. So we help develop the budget. That's part of the job. The other part is managing the budget. Things come up throughout the year that we couldn't foresee. And so how do we help each departments and separately electeds manage the budget so that we stay financially stable, fiscally responsible, and efficient in our use of funds? So the policy aspect is one, and then the actual, just the dollars and cents of it all. Like, how do we make the math work? And so that's the other part of it, just making sure that we have a balanced budget when we present your recommendation in October, and then as the commissioners vote to appropriate a bill every year to cover all of the things that we want to finance.
All right. Well, you got a tough job ahead of you. Now, this is Women's History Month.
Yes.
And I understand that you have brought a book of someone you admire.
I did.
All
yes.
right. So tell us about it.
So I'm a lawyer. And I went to law school for, the reasons that most people go to law school, which is because our country is grounded in the rule of law. It separates us and differentiates us from so many other countries out there. And in this day and age, where we're seeing the impact that judicial decisions have on the simple civil liberties that people enjoy in this country, one of the women that I admire greatly is the Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So she has affectionately people have started calling her Notorious RBG, which is a play on the Notorious B.I.G., the rapper.
The rapper.
Yes. And she is a fierce advocate of civil rights. She is a fierce advocate of rights for women, in particular, so it dovetails very nicely with Women's History Month. And she is one of the smartest jurists and lawyers in our country today, and probably ever. And I just really admire her tenacity, her drive to never let her voice be overshadowed. And despite coming in such a small package, she's a very tiny person. She has a great presence, and I think that we can all learn from the lessons that she teaches us every day. Even today, when she is not in the best health, she's still a very large voice on the Supreme Court. And she's someone that I look to when I think, I'm tired. I wish I could just rest. She has the drive of 10 people. So she's the woman that I wanted to bring on your show to say that I admire because of all that she's done to progress the rights of women and even men in this country.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the recommendation for further reading. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We're back with Talk with Toni. Our guest is Dr. Ponni Arunkumar, who's Chief Medical Examiner for Cook County. Now, I was teasing you earlier and saying Ponni Arunkumar is an all-American name. So tell us a little bit about that.
It is a traditional South Indian name. Ponni stands for the River of Gold. It is basically a tributary of a river that supplied water to the fields where my parents, their parents were farmers. So that river supplied water for the rice fields, and hence I was named Ponni, which is that tributary of the river that supplied water. Arunkumar is basically my husband's name, but the origin of Ponni goes back to the village.
All right, so the benefit of our viewers, India is the largest democracy in the world.
Yes.
The most populous democracy in the world. We have a lot in common with India, and actually President Trump and President Modi seem to have a pretty good relationship, which we won't go into here. All right, but tell me more. So your family came from southern India?
Yes.
And what brought them here? Opportunity, I presume.
Opportunity to study. So my father did his PhD in aeronautical engineering in New Jersey, and then got a job at NASA in California.
Oh my God.
So I was born in New Jersey, grew up in California for a little bit, and then they decided they wanted to go back to South India, so we would grow up there. I think they were a little concerned about us growing up in a foreign country for them. And we went to South India.
Corrupted by the United States.
So I did all my schooling there, including medical school, and then got married. My husband was working in England at the time, so I went to England, was with him for 6 months, and then we decided we would move to the United States. And I came to the U.S., did my residency in anatomic and clinical pathology at Cook County Hospital.
Oh, you're one of our Cook County folks.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
good. I didn't realize that.
So I was initially interested in doing microbiology, and then did a 1-month rotation as part of my pathology residency at the medical examiner's office in Cook County. Loved the field. You get to do all aspects of medicine. You're doing autopsies, you're looking under the microscope, you're going to court explaining what happened to the person to a jury, you're going to scenes. So I was very interested in the field and did my fellowship at the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. I was offered a job there in 2004, was an assistant medical examiner for 8 years, and then was offered the position of deputy chief medical examiner in 2012, where I worked with the chief then, who was Dr. Steven Sina, helped with regaining national accreditation for the office, and in 2016 was appointed as the chief medical examiner.
All right. So now, I went to a convention of pathologists. What struck me was that so many of them, at least the younger ones, were women. The older, the older ones were white guys, but the younger one were a very diverse group of women. So why is pathology attract so many women?
I think it requires a lot of intuitive thinking. You need to think through what you're seeing.
Problem solving.
Yes, and that's what I think interests more women into the field. Forensic pathology, again, was all white men, and once women got interested in the field, right now in our office there are more women forensic pathologists than the men, so we took over the men pathologists, their locker room, basically.
And gave them the small one, right?
Yes, yeah. So I mean, there's women are going more into the forensic pathology field as well, and I think again what intrigues us is you're trying to figure things out. Yes, you're doing autopsies, which may be a little gory, but in the end, you're trying to figure out why the person died, and I think that's what interests more women into the field.
And surely, providing that information to the family gives them some solace.
Yes,
under what are often difficult circumstances.
Yes, and when it comes to explaining what happened to the person, I think it brings them closure when we go to court. It helps them bring some justice and some closure. And when it comes to the indigents in our office, we are able to give them a dignified disposition, which gives us a lot of satisfaction that we're able to provide that service for the county residents.
Yeah, I think people may not know, but the county buries people who have no family or anyone to come forward to claim their body. And several times a year, thanks to Catholic Charities and the Catholic cemeteries, we have a ceremony and inter people. It's a final blessing.
Yes, and we're able to take care of our residents, whoever they may be, which is very satisfying.
Right, right. So what does Women's History Month mean to you?
Women's History Month to me is a celebration of women, their contributions, their achievements, just being a mom, being a sister, a wife, a daughter. I think it's a celebration of who we are, and it makes you proud, and be aware that there is this whole group of people rooting for you, and you're able to inspire women too in that way.
Well, we're very grateful for the good work that you've done in the medical examiner's office. We appreciate it. And it's fascinating to me to hear your stories about how this is a part of the medical field that it now seems to be, I won't say taken over, but where women are disproportionately represented.
Agreed. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, and I think initially it probably, it requires some more physical strength to do autopsies, and once women got in, you realize it's not as difficult as it seems. It is more, you need to think a lot more, not just the physical aspects. So more women are in the field, which is great.
Right. So any particular woman you want to rise up, lift up, who you admire? In medicine or whatever?
The first person I admire and look up to is my mom.
Are your parents still with us?
Yes, they're still with us. They're in India, though. My mom has been very resilient, very patient, understanding of the fact that all 3 children wanted to come to the U.S. My youngest brother is now going back to India, so there's some support there. But she's always been someone I looked up to for her courage and patience. Another person I can think of is my neighbor. She's not the mom, she's the grandmother, lives with the family, 80, maybe now more than 80 years old, wakes up early in the morning, shovels the snow. She has a long driveway much before we all wake up. We're not even able
She's
to
out and do it.
We're not even able to offer her any help. She clears the snow, is always very active, and someone who takes care of the grandkids, someone I admire. And in our office, we had an investigator, Jackie Mosley. She was one of our senior investigators, made sure the work was done properly, worked very hard, made sure we got all the pathologist got all the information we needed, was able to network with all the hospitals, got us all the medical records. In those days, there were no electronic medical records. So
everything was paper.
Right. So she was able to get that for us. Worked for, I think, close to 30 years, and someone, whose hard work you aspire to become and be.
All right, your mother, your neighbor, and an employee.
Yes.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you, Dr. Arunkumar, for joining us. We're grateful.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So often on this program, I recommend books to folks, and this actually is one of my favorites. I'm a history teacher, and I, of course, like history and biography, but I also like historical fiction. And this book, although written by a man, Lawrence Hill, it's called Someone Knows My Name, is about a young woman, Mina D, or Aminata Diallo, which was her name in Sierra Leone when she was kidnapped and brought to the United States as a slave. It's a story of her life, from her growing up in Sierra Leone, to her enslavement in the United States, to her escape during the Revolutionary War, to Canada, and then eventually her arrival in Britain. But it's a fascinating story of one woman's courage and persistence. Fascinating story. Lawrence Hill, Someone Knows My Name. I recommend it. So thank you for rejoining Talk with Toni. Our next guest, Audrey Wilson, is League of Women Voters of Illinois, Executive Director, and Head of the Women's Commission, Cook County. Thank you for joining us, Audra.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been in Chicago long enough to almost call myself a native, but I'm actually an East Coast native.
All right, where?
I am from New Jersey, actually.
Okay, all right.
So, but I went to law school in Indiana and have been out in the Midwest since then. I am a public interest attorney by heart and by training. I actually spent my first 5 years at the Schreiber Center on poverty law. And then kind of.
Why don't you tell us about that work real quick, because everybody may not know the Schreiber Center.
Yes, thank you. So the Sergeant Schreiber National Center on Poverty Law is an organization that is dedicated to issues of low-income working families, and so whether it's for affordable housing or health issues, and so it's a 50-year-old organization, and that's where I actually got my legal training. And that was the basis, quite frankly, for moving into the political sphere, too, because I was doing a lot of legislative advocacy and got a chance to interact with a lot of lawmakers and in creating policies that helped low-income working families. And that's pretty much underscored most of my legal career and my work.
Very good, very good. And now?
So after more working in politics, I actually was working for the House of Representatives for 5.5 years. And then from there, I actually... On staff with United States Congresswoman Robin Kelly, who's in the 2nd Congressional District. I think you might know her.
Yes.
So I actually got tapped to become the Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of Illinois, which I thought was a really great segue because I had the experience from working with different constituencies, different types of folks from all walks of life and political affiliations, and that's the hallmark of what we do at the League of Women Voters, which is just turned 100 years old. It is a nonpartisan grassroots organization whose primary mission is to empower voters and defend democracy.
Now, you just had your 100th anniversary celebration.
We did on February 14th. That was our actual birthday. We had a 100th anniversary celebration at the Congress Hotel where the League was actually founded. So it was very sentimental for all of us to actually be in the room of our founding from 100 years ago.
What's the agenda of the League going forward?
Well, the League does 2 primary things. It's voter service is one half of our work, and the other half is issues and advocacy. Voter service is the part where we are doing sustained engagement. We are trying to mobilize voters, we register them, we engage them, we educate them. And so
candidates forums and things like that?
From candidates forums and policy papers. But the candidates forum is probably what we're really known for as well. And we host candidate forums because we want all voters to actually know who they're voting for and why, and irrespective of political affiliation. But we feel that an educated voter, quite frankly, is the most responsible of voters. No matter how you choose to cast that ballot or for whom, making sure that you're educated is the most important thing for us.
All right, so voter education or citizenship education, I suppose, has been part of your DNA for a very long time. What kind of issues one of the things that I love about the League, of which I'm a member, by the way,
you are,
is that it's a multi-issue organization. And how are those organizations? I mean, I am very grateful for multi-issue organizations. Not that I have anything against single-issue organizations, but organizations that take off on a broad spectrum of the challenges that we face, I think, are really admirable. What are the kind of special issues that the League is focused on going forward here?
So I always remind people that even though we are nonpartisan, we're never non-opinion. So we do, issues and advocacy is a key component of what we do. However, every 2 years when we have our convention, we actually create an agenda or an action foci of issues that we are going to focus on. So these are the most relevant or salient issues in this particular 2-year period. So we're multi-issue, but they're still relevant for the day. Recurring issues that we have, of course, always includes environment, because unfortunately that's an issue that never goes away when we're talking about protection of our environment. Now we're doing gun violence advocacy, or gun violence prevention advocacy. We will do, we have health issues that are related to that, criminal justice reform. So a lot of these things that, quite frankly, are some of the issues that we take on in the county are some of our action focus as well. Census is another one that's important for us. And for this 2-year period, the fair tax is an issue that has been actually, or the graduated rate income tax was a 40-year issue for the League in terms of advocacy, but now that has really gained traction and momentum in the state of Illinois. That's one of our signature issues for the time being.
So the League has been a proponent of a graduated income tax for 40 years.
For 40 years, absolutely.
You know, what discourages me is that it seems like there's a drumbeat of opposition to the fair tax. What do you think that stems from, and how can we persuade people that if you want good government, you got to pay for it?
Well, as you know intimately, sometimes you have to spend half your time counteracting conjecture and myth and misinformation. We have been launching in this really in-depth information campaign about what does fair tax mean. People don't even understand the current system of a flat tax and understand how very few states still have a flat tax. And so we have been working with the Responsible Budget Coalition, which is a coalition of many of the like-minded civic organizations that are proponents of the fair tax. And the biggest part of what we're doing is to educate people on what the fair tax is, you know, what is the graduated rate income tax, to help sort of counteract a lot of the myth and conjecture that comes out there about, you know, why it's a bad thing for us. And that's been kind of a challenging thing because, you know, the opposition is strong and it loves to scare people. People hear tax and of course their ears shut down. They don't want to hear about this stuff, but that's
and we have one of our local newspapers whose drumbeat is, you know, this is a high tax state, you know, things are terrible as a result, and, you know, and the fair tax, the graduated income tax is, you know, anathema to them.
Yes, it is. But when we're looking at numbers and when we're just looking at just how the tax is implemented, I just saw actually a statistic that was really fascinating when it showed flat tax in other states too in its application. When you're looking at the disproportionate impact that it has on middle income and lower income working families, that's quite frankly what really jumped out to us at the League and to many of these like-minded organizations, saying, you know, the counter to that, quite frankly, should be what is frustrating to you and what is that is not a positive thing, but yet we still have to sit here talking about pension and other sorts of issues that get woven into the graduated rate income tax discussion as it sort of gets maligned by some of the powers that be. So the education piece has been a huge component of what we're trying to push out. But there is definitely momentum. There's definitely a lot of positive momentum. We're excited about it. We'll be lobbying in Springfield within the next couple of weeks, and you know, we're going to continue to beat that drum.
Good, good. Now this is Women's History Month.
It is.
Any women in particular you want to lift up as folks you admire?
I hope it's not too cliched, but I have to definitely say my mom. My parents are immigrants. They're immigrants from Jamaica.
Oh, okay.
And they have instilled in me, I guess, a work ethic. I know we sometimes joke around about Jamaicans that have so many jobs, but you know, my parents were one of those kind of people. They worked so hard. They instilled in my brother and I a very strong work ethic, but not just by talking about it. I mean, they really modeled it. I saw how hard my mom worked. I just saw how she kind of put her head down and did whatever she needed to do with for the family, and yet managed to always be so positive and encouraging and uplifting. Both my mother and father wanted me to be better, faster, stronger than they ever were. And I'm so grateful for that, because now I try to impart that to my 11-year-old.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for joining us, Audra, and thank you for your good work at the League.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Our final guest is Lanetta Haynes Turner, my Chief of Staff. Ta-da!
Hello.
Lanetta, tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, I am, of course, your Chief of Staff. I've been with the county for 5 years. I started off as your Executive Director of the Justice Advisory Council, which, for those who don't know, is our criminal justice office. I was there for a few years, and then I transitioned to Deputy Chief of Staff, focusing primarily on policy before being promoted.
Yes, more than a year ago. Year and a half.
Yes, it's almost a year and a half.
Okay. All right, so what do you do as Chief of Staff?
Oh, that's a hard one. It depends on the day, and it depends on what's going on. But primarily, I think my role is to support you and making sure that your policy initiatives and your goals are carried out. I work very closely with our bureau chiefs and department heads to make sure that they're able to tackle the challenges that might come up on a day-to-day basis within their space. And then I provide just a policy layer to make sure that your goals and our goals as a county to really advocate for all of our residents across the county are met.
So what's the toughest part of the job?
Can I talk about this with my boss?
Sure.
Well, okay. What's the toughest part of the job? I think that there's a lot of demands that are always coming, and so things happen very quickly. You have to make decisions very quickly, and there's no blueprint for what a chief of staff should and shouldn't do. I think in those moments, I make sure that we rely on our team, because we do really collaborate with the folks that are around us, the bureau chiefs and our department heads. But that's probably the toughest part of the job, is just the nature of having 1,000,001 requests and not a lot of time to get everything done.
So you started your story, interestingly enough, with coming to work for the county, but that's not all
Yes.
you've done in your life.
No.
So, as much as you care to share.
Yes. So I am a lawyer by background, and I practiced for a few
We have
years.
an abundance of lawyers today.
Yes. Lawyers are great people, if I must say so myself. But I practiced for a few years in abuse and neglect and criminal justice. And then I transitioned to nonprofit management. I was the first executive director of a small agency called Cook County Justice for Children. And then I also was the executive director for CASA of Cook County, which
What's
is
CASA?
it's an advocacy organization that trains volunteers who work with children who've been abused and neglected. And so that's really where my original passion was. And so coming to the county really allowed me to merge all my favorite things, law, children, policy, and more importantly, criminal justice.
Okay, so that's an interesting sort of trajectory.
Yes, yes. And I didn't plan it. So, I think becoming a lawyer, I knew at the age of 6, I didn't quite know what it meant to be a lawyer, but I knew I wanted to advocate for people who were less fortunate than myself, and I wanted to make sure that children had a voice. So I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, but I think I had a very well planned out. I graduated from undergrad. I went immediately to law school. I thought I was going to practice forever, but they always caution you when I was younger to say, don't always have a plan for everything. And so I think a lot of the positions that I've held over the years was because people saw the work that I did and my work ethic, and they asked me to join their team, and therefore there's another offer and another offer. So I didn't ever think that I would be in government per se, but I think that it is the perfect culmination of where I am in my career and my background and experiences.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is Women's History Month.
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
Well, I celebrate women all year round.
All right, you're here.
I think first and foremost, I'm a Black woman, and so I always think of Black History Month with Women's History Month. It really is just an opportunity for me to think about all of the women who are in my life, think about the women that I work with, those who have given me good advice over the years, those who I've given advice to. And so it really is just a time for me to kind of step back and say thank you to all of the women who've influenced me, and to make sure that I'm doing everything that I need to do to make sure that I give that opportunity to women coming behind me.
Any particular women you want to lift up and express your appreciation for?
I was being teased earlier, but I remember when I decided that I wanted to be a lawyer, one of our history teacher actually made us all do a short biography, a short book report on someone that we thought was important. And so I did mine on the first African-American lawyer, Charlotte Ray, who was the first African-American woman to graduate from Howard University, and she was admitted to the bar in the District of Columbia. Unfortunately, because of racism, she wasn't really able to sustain her private practice, and so while she was capable and a legal scholar, not many folks wanted to work with her, and so she ended up taking her legal degree and started to teach. But what that taught me is that you do have to persevere, and you have to make sure that you are a trailblazer in whatever your passion or your interests are. And so Charlotte Ray has always kind of stuck with me over the years. And now we have much better opportunities, although the disparities in even the legal profession is still not where we want to be. I think in 2020 we're still saying the first woman, the first African American, and I'm hoping that over time that will change, and we'll have a lot more women who are not just the first, but among many.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your service. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. And thank you for joining us for Talk with Toni.